Hello, and thank you for joining us for our BNI San Diego podcast. We are back on the BNI Core Values Series, and today we're touching on traditions plus innovations. And as you can see, my co-host for our BNI Core Values is Andy Cruz. Andy, how's it going?
Hey, what's happening, Ed?
Having a fantastic day, living the dream, enjoying every element of what we get to do.
Awesome.
And the people we get to serve.
Yeah.
So our topic, our core value for today is traditions plus innovations.
Yes.
And I'm going to go ahead and read what that is. We honor our traditions and look to brighten to a brighter future fueled by innovation, optimism, and excitement.
Yep.
So again, our topic today is traditions plus innovations. What do you think of when you think of traditions plus innovations?
Well, right out the gate is the traditions matter. I mean, traditions remind us what works over time. There's clearly things that have proven to work throughout the entire multi-decade history of BNI, not only starting here in California, but then going nationwide and then going global. Some things just turn out to be true because they're true, no matter how much time passes, no matter how far-reaching it becomes. And one of those things is the interconnectedness between people. In previous episodes about core values, we talked about the attitude of giver's gain and the embodiment of that. And there seems to be this behavioral, natural, human connection between people that is very traditional. And in all sorts of history and people groups, you look at togetherness and villages and societies and cities and groupings of people. And that is the same for BNI. It's a weekly gathering of people in person, or at least in face-to-face, online, and Zoom, or hybrid of some sort. There's a traditional core to that. There's roots that go back to what has survived human history.
Well, yeah, I mean, so since you mentioned that, I'm going to start by asking the question, what are traditions? What are traditions?
I think they're things that we honor, things that we give reverence to, things that we respect and that we really care about, things that we love and we're appreciative and grateful for. Tradition are things that we do out of not only routine, but out of respect. And I know culturally speaking, honor means a couple of different things depending on who might be listening to this one. There are definitely some cultures that have a much higher impression of what honor means, for sure. But traditions are really things that we value, and the things that we have decided are worth repeating and are important to do as part of us continuing to carry legacy, build legacy into next generations and the ones beyond that.
Well, and a lot of it comes from how we first began, right? How an organization first came up. For BNI, Dr. Ivan Meisner, who's the founder of BNI, talks about that one-page agenda, right? That's a tradition of ours, right?
Yeah.
It's who we are as an organization. It's those, founding characteristics, those formulas, those things that as an organization.
Yeah, it can be very simple, but I think part of what's beautiful about traditions is that a lot of them are simple. They don't have to be complicated. And,
Absolutely.
I think, the innovation part of this traditions plus innovation is sometimes we might have initial resistance to things that we think might be more complicated or complex. But when you have the traditions plus the innovation together, they're meant to aid the thing, and they're made to amplify or enhance the thing that is already being honored or is being given reverence for working. And so when I think about, the early days of the BNI Connect app, going from paper slips to being able to report online, and then taking paper slips and manually entering them, and then doing reports from that. So the innovation part has certainly helped speed up, expedite, consolidate, or maybe even enhance and amplify the kind of things we can do in the chapter that helps give even a greater insight as to what's working and what's not working. And it comes from that tradition of the meeting runs this way because it runs this way, whether it's in person, hybrid, or online. The referral process works this way because it just works that way, whether it's in person, hybrid, or online. And whether it's paper slips or if it's the digital recording that you do in the BNI Connect app. So, and we've seen in the BNI Connect app itself, we've seen like so many different versions of, or I should say, revisions, and it mature from a concept all the way to what it is now.
Oh my gosh. And I love that, this dialogue, because, for some of our listeners may or may not know, I actually worked with Dr. Meisner at our global headquarters for just over 6 years.
Yeah.
And in my role, we would talk a lot about our core values. And I used to say in the beginning, I would just kind of run through, hey, traditions and innovations. And one day he actually walked into my office. He must have been walking by when I was talking about it. And he leans in and he goes, hey, Ed, I'm going to correct you in a very positive way. He's amazing at that. And he said, it's not traditions and innovations. It's traditions plus innovations. The key there is the plus, right? We need to add innovation in. We've got to continually up our game, and we do that by innovating. I'll tell you, 3 years ago, coming up on 4 years, it's crazy. We had a huge innovation where we now have things online. We now have chapters that meet 100% online. Yep. We went through this little thing called the Great Pause, or COVID for some people.
Yeah.
And it caused us to innovate. It caused us to innovate and very quickly.
Yeah.
And from this innovation has come many wonderful things.
Yeah. And I think the part that is really impressive to me is that having experienced BNI for so long and seeing it only in person, seeing it only with paper slips, and the things that still work, that worked back then, that still work now because they just work, matched with the enhancements that have been made over time. So the enhancements are like, they're not just adjustments; they're actually giving more value over the course of time because me, just like everyone else, I pay to be in my group. I want value back from that group. I want what the best is that BNI has to offer for me as a professional and as a member of my chapter. And as that, because the core value just exists, that we have traditions plus innovations, it's a commitment to those things being carried out into the future too. And unless that's going to change, it's something that everyone should be able to, I'll say, bank on, but expect that is going to help continue bringing more value to their membership over the course of time. And then I'm going to also say this is a maybe not so light accountability for those of us who are listening and watching, is maybe some of us aren't taking advantage of all the innovations that we could, that would be amplifying and benefiting us in our membership. I can admit that I have had a gym membership in the past. I've had multiple gym memberships in the past. And having the membership doesn't make me any more fit. I have to go and do the stuff and follow the rules and do the training program and have the coach and all that stuff.
You're telling me we have to do the stuff?
Yeah. You got to do.
That's a whole nother conversation.
You got to do the stuff. And here's what I would say is, if you are currently underutilizing the innovations part of traditions and innovations, I would say
traditions plus innovation.
Traditions. I said it. The traditions plus innovation is, first of all, assess where your areas of growth are. Then you need to address them and be accountable, like to yourself, to them, and then go attack it. Like, go do it. Anything that you feel like you have shortcomings from the traditions or the innovations, assess what they are, address how you can go make them as valuable as possible to you, and then go attack it. Those are my 3 A's: assess, address, and attack.
And I love that, right? Because we've got to continually be engaged. It's what I love about traditions plus innovations, and listen to this one. Traditions keep us grounded, and innovations allow us to fly and soar.
Yep, that's right.
Right. So it's notice that there's 2 elements. One is grounded, right? We're solid in our beliefs and whatnot, whether it's in BNI or our own businesses and families, right? What we're talking about, our core values apply to BNI because that's what they're here for. But we can also take them out the door and apply them to our own businesses and our family life and that.
Yes.
So that element of being grounded, but then the innovation allows us to fly and soar in new directions that we've never been before.
Well, I mean, and so there's 2 things I'm thinking about when you're saying this. Number one, think about what traditions exist at your own company or your own job. And then what innovations have happened that help you do those things better, like keep you grounded, but take you higher. But then also in the BNI respect, I'd say what things inside BNI, if you made 10% better, and then that 10% also translated outside into your company, I mean, who wouldn't be happy about another 10% increase of revenue or 10% increase of opportunities of whatever you sell or do? So it's kind of like the double triple effect is like, we got to make sure we know what those things are. Let's do them in the meeting, and then let's pour those over into our world outside of the meeting, and you let those things ride as well. And I would beg to argue that you'd probably see people with even greater bottom lines and greater revenue as a result of that.
Yeah. And here's a question for our listeners. As I think about it, it's like, I wonder how many know. When you think about your business, whether you're 6 months old, 6 years old, or 60 years old, or 100 plus years old as an organization, do you, as the owner, as the manager, as the employee, do you know what your traditions are?
Yeah.
You know where you're grounded and how you're grounded.
Yeah.
Do you know that element of your organization? It's easy to talk about innovations because it's always hopping and moving, and we live almost in that element of innovation anymore.
Yeah.
But how many of us actually understand and know what got us to allow us to innovate and allow us to do? Do you know what those founding elements of your traditions are?
Yeah. It's great. That's really good. And I'm sure that's going to make some of our watchers and listeners go to account for themselves and go, you know what? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to figure it out right now and go back and look and see what things actually are traditions, even if we haven't called them that, even if we haven't respected and honored them as those things. I'm going to go to that little process myself and figure out what those things are.
I think it's those things that hopefully will help us even appreciate even a little more about the organization that we're with or that we've started.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the when you see companies transition from mom and pop. Matter of fact, I just finished the book, and I highly recommend it to everyone, on In-N-Out Burger, the In-N-Out book. And there's a lot of traditions plus innovations throughout this book, where mom and dad started this amazing organization called In-N-Out, and it was handed over to the kids, to the next generation. And it's important, especially for, the parents talk a lot about the element of tradition. And sometimes it's really easy for the kids to go, yeah, mom, yeah, dad. But what about the innovation?
Right.
And they focus on the innovation. Yeah. Well, without the tradition, you wouldn't have innovation.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it does precede the other.
Yeah.
Yep.
And do we know what that is? Whether we're in our BNI chapter, do we understand what those traditions are? Yeah. Do you know, when it comes to this organization that you're a part of, do you know what those traditions are?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to see innovation with our apps and BNI Connect and, Zoom and all these things that we do. But I saw a little quizzical face.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of like my final thought on this is like, just because there's innovation doesn't mean you have to abandon the tradition. So anyone who might be hesitating on the innovation part of anything, whether it's this conversation of BNI, your own company, whatever, it doesn't mean that you are abandoning the things of the past that have brought you to where you're at. In fact, they actually complement each other, and they're kind of like I don't say like a reward. They're not a reward necessarily. What I mean really is like, it's almost a testament to where the past has brought you from. So just because we talk about innovation and there's new things that come out, like I have my own resistances to things because, hey, I'm getting up there too. But it also reminds me that we've come from somewhere as well. And I don't have to remove those other parts from my life just because this new thing has showed up.
Oh, that's very true. Very good point.
Yep.
I love that. So Andy, as we come into our close for this particular podcast on traditions plus innovations, if you had one final thought to leave with our, that was almost a final thought that you just gave.
Oh no, I got a final.
Oh, then let's get to that final thought, Andy. What's your final thought for our listeners today?
So here's the final. There have been a lot of people that have joined BNI in the last couple of years and don't know the BNI of old. Go back and read the Giver's Game book. Go back and read the story of BNI, how it began. If you do not know it, go and learn it and let that serve as kind of the general basis root system for everything that has come from BNI since then. That is going to do you a great justice to understanding why we do certain things the way we do them and why we do them with frequency and why we expect them to be done with excellence. It is because of that core set of things that were set right out the gate, right at the very beginning, that have driven all of this accumulated success over 3+ decades to where we're at now.
Wow, that's a fantastic final thought. So in other words, our listeners, you've got some homework to do.
And it counts for CEUs, by the way.
Absolutely. It certainly does. And again, for our listeners who are not familiar with BNI, CEUs stand for Chapter Education Units. And Andy is obviously talking about our book, Giver's Gain, that tells the story of BNI and how things got started. It's a great book. If you'd like more information, feel free to reach out to me at ed@bnisd.com. We'll make sure you get a copy so you can read a little bit. Andy, thank you again for joining us. I'm loving this series. That was core value number 4. So we're working our way through. We have 3 more to go. In 2 weeks, we'll be back on here talking about this little element of positive attitude. So for our listeners, thank you for joining us today, Andy. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to being with you in 2 weeks for our next podcast. Thanks, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you. Oh, you know what? And we look forward to seeing you next week as well with a very dynamic topic. I won't give it away, but just make sure you stay tuned, and then you'll be back here in 2 weeks with Andy and I to go over positive attitude. I hope you have a great rest of your week and enjoy your weekend.
This episode of the BNI San Diego Podcast has been brought to you by Cruise Productions, a San Diego-based video production company and proud BNI member. You can find us at the intersection where business and creativity meet, or online at cruiseproductionsinc.com.